welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our basketball show last week, which was probably the happiest I've ever seen Sandile in the studio ever.
That was my show right there, blood.
It was so cool because he got to speak about sport with like such animation, carefreeness. There was nothing heartbreaking. And then, well, your football teams have brought you back to your sad status quo, haven't they?
I knew it. I knew it would come back to me. Flip. What a weekend and a week.
So Man United obviously lost. We won't get into that debacle here.
Please don't.
Kaizer Chiefs, Tuesday night. Sandile was out there in the rain. They got thrashed.
Thumped.
Sport giveth and sport taketh.
Yo, it's taketh recently. Too much.
Nobody knows more about this than our guest this week. It is Brent Graham. Now, Brent is a sports betting blogger, basically. He's a seasoned pundit. And when it comes to betting, this guy knows all the things, the ins, the outs, the odds, the evens, jargon. He's here. He's our guy. Because you think about it, like billions get spent every single month on sports betting sites here in South Africa. So it's very much a huge part of who we are as sports fans and very much how we actually, engage with sport nowadays.
100%, yeah.
So we're going to get into that with him. I always think, like, if so many of us are betting, are we betting well? Or are we just a whole bunch of drakes with just a whole lot less money? Brent, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be with you. I must say, look, make no mistake, the house usually wins in the long run in betting. But sports betting is one of those things that if you do your homework and you put a bit of application in, you can make money. I won't mention figures because I'm actually a much smaller punter than I used to be, but I've shown a profit in 11 out of 12 years. And that doesn't mean I haven't had my ups and downs. You get, as you get older, you learn things. But yeah, it's all about, there's so much about money management, bankroll management and that sort of thing. But you can, if you take it seriously, you can make a few bucks and have a bit of fun. People have often asked me, would you ever be a professional? Not a chance. I would never be able to handle the pressure knowing that the kids' school fees or whatever it is riding on Kaizer Chiefs against Supersport. I couldn't handle that.
Wow, Brent, you've come out of the blocks hard here.
Came out swinging.
Jeez, you came out here flexing what obviously he's made. Amazing. Okay, so that's obviously going to be the big thing for the show, but we've got to touch on this week, Sandile. You went to FNB Stadium. There was about 8 of you there.
Yeah.
You know what? I often think the show is for you. It's also cathartic.
Yeah.
You can unleash with us, safe space.
So we're at the stadium on Tuesday night. What a disaster once again. I'm 0-4 at FNB Stadium. But this is what you get, Kaizer Chiefs, for hiring a coach who can't speak English and who has to speak through his translator. Kaizer Chiefs, once again, I hate to use the F-bomb, but fucking it around. I blame the family, and I'm throwing a real Kaizer Chiefs rant on this one. This is all your fault. We deserve better. Me and the 6 Chiefs fans and the 2 SuperSport fans were absolutely disappointed. But big shout out to Gavin Hunt getting some get back. I'm always down for somebody getting get back. He was the happiest we've ever seen Gavin Hunt. A guy who generally has strokes every single time he plays. He was hugging every player. He hugged the ref because the ref was on his side. As you can see, I'm super hurt by what happened on Tuesday night.
You know, I often think, because like we give each other a lot of shit because that's just nature, like how guys are.
Yeah.
But I often look at your Instagram feed nowadays and I actually just want to give you a hug. What made it worse, the 2 goals SuperSport United scored were ex-Chiefs players.
Yes, and they came, and you know what? They celebrated. And the crazy part is that last goal where he puts it into the top corner, they played around with the ball in the box for such a long time. And it actually should have been 5 because that free kick, Nurkic really wanted to score that free kick rebound goal. But it was terrible. And once again, it's an indictment of how Kaizer Chiefs are hiring. But it's a clear reflection of how the Mutawungs are running Kaizer Chiefs. And please clip this and put this on, our Instagram feed for a little cut because I really feel this is a strong statement from every Chiefs fan. Sorry.
Fair. Okay. Obviously, with Klipdrift, that's gold moments from last week. We're going to bypass Chiefs straight away.
Please.
And we're going to get into some of the bigger ones. So, Brent, what we try to do is kick off the things here. What are the big moments from last week that we couldn't obviously cover from the last show? We got to get Champions League, of course. Club Brugge. Those Oaks, they finished, 24th? Like, they got the last qualifying spot for this little round of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they beat Atalanta, but like hammered them, though.
Yeah, that Atalanta game, everybody thought it was going to be a walkover for Club Brugge or Club Brugge. They actually wiped the floor with Atalanta yesterday, but Lookman also decided to not take a reasonably great penalty. But that is the beauty of football. And, backing the underdog, I know it's a betting show, so we're going to talk about those type of things.
Nice, get into, into the rhythm here, nice.
But yeah, shout out to Club Brugge. That one is probably my favorite That's Gold moment.
Okay, Man City fans, I think there's like 3 of you left, but last week now there's like 37 of you left. They've got their own Salah. Bro pulls in, scores a hat-trick. They beat Newcastle 4-0. Now, Brent, I didn't think, as a betting man, that wasn't really on the cards, was it?
No, definitely not the way City have been playing. Look, I must say, English Premier League, I follow. I take the odd multiple, that sort of stuff. But it's just, I don't find any value there from a betting perspective because there's so much information out there. I mean, I can't possibly figure out something that the people who priced the odds haven't. Yeah. Having said that, it's such a popular sport. It's great. You take 3 or 4 results together and get the accumulator. But I can tell you, I would not have had Manchester City, certainly not to win the game by 4 goals. I mean, that would have been a big price. You probably would have got about 40 to 1 on that.
Like Newcastle have been that team that's like, we want to be top 4, we're pushing for it, but they were just rolled like kind of old days. Now, obviously, with the show going out on Thursday, we're going to miss the Real Madrid-Man City game, so we can't talk about that. But let's get into our next That's Gold moment from the week, and that was last week, Ludwig Aberg, or Oberg. It's like one of those weird Scandinavian ones where you got a letter and there's an umlaut or a line that goes through the thing. Ludwig Aberg, this guy's going to be like one of the next best things in golf. And he won Tiger's tournament, the Genesis. It wasn't normally at Riviera. It was at Torrey Pines because of obviously the big fires in the Palisades.
Yep.
But this dude, he's so good. He's like, it all happened so quickly for this guy as well. When I was at the Ryder Cup 2 years ago, I just happened to be on a hole, and his girlfriend at the time was talking with some friends, and we were all standing there. It was like 6 of us, and she was just saying how like she dated this guy in college, literally like college player, and now he's playing Ryder Cup. So her life she was just telling her friends how her life has changed so much. Like imagine with him, this guy, he was in the Ryder Cup before he actually won on the PGA Tour, kind of thing.
Damn. So they backed him like that.
He's that good. So I think definitely the future, and winning a big event like this puts him on the map. We got to talk rugby. Another That's Gold moment was the Sharks. Unfavored Sharks to a certain degree. Back me up
to a
here.
large degree. Big money for the Bulls on the day as well.
Yeah. Went to Loftus.
Some of it mine.
No.
The Sharks team, without the obvious stars you think are going to be where you want to be, they got there. They were 7-0 down as well at Loftus.
After 4 minutes or something, yeah.
And they pulled away.
Through. Yeah.
They pulled away.
Got me thinking about, do they really need those Springboks in their team? And I'm going to go back to that one day. But anyway.
It's a question we ask ourselves about unity and cohesion and how that team just jolls. Because on paper, they can be phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they seldom perform when they're like that.
Yeah.
Brent, from your side, I mean, was it more worrying for the Bulls than it was encouraging for the Sharks, that result?
I think so. I think it was very worrying for the Bulls because I thought they had an absolutely poor performance on the day. So to give you an idea, there are lots of different markets in betting. So the Bulls points line, in other words, just points for the Bulls to score, was 33 points. Now, the last 2 meetings against the Sharks at Loftus, they had scored over 40 comfortably. So they only scored 19 points and, only got a late try to get there. So it was dismal from them. I think encouraging for the Sharks, certainly, as you say, doing it out their stars. The Sharks have got to still do it week in or week out before I'm convinced of Plumtree and the Sharks. But from the Bulls' point of view, honestly, I think it's probably time they move on now and make some changes at the coaching level, because that for me was dismal, as was the state, I must say, of the Loftus pitch. It was absolutely disgraceful. Having said that, I think there was a concert. The problem is they have concerts and stuff there. Sundowns also complained about it as well because they had to play on it.
When Sundowns put hands on Pirates, that pitch I've never seen look so bad.
Yeah, no, it looked absolutely. I wish I'd actually watched the Sundowns game because it might have put me off my Bulls bet when I saw how bad it is. Now you can imagine this week's game is at Loftus. It's been raining all week. It was already muddy there. I think we're in for a bit of a mud bath on Saturday.
All right. So our final That's Gold moment for the week. We're going to go into a sport we don't cover a whole bunch of.
You've been obsessed about this, so you're going to roll out with it.
Athletics, okay?
Yeah.
Now, Jakob Ingebrigtsen. This oak, he went to the Olympics as like the big favorite for the 1,500 meters. Didn't actually win it, but he ended up winning a whole bunch of other stuff. He's crazy good, okay? He's 24, this dude. This picture we're showing on screen right now is him after running 1,500 meters in a time of 3 minutes, 45 seconds and 14.14. Look how fresh he looks. The dude looks so fresh, like he's just done a 5K with his mates, like a park run.
Yeah, and more concerning is that guy needs some 7-color dinner, lunch at home. That guy looks skinny.
No, he's super skinny, but he's built for purpose.
Yeah, man, he needs the 7
built
colors.
for purpose. But this oak, again, 1,500 meters is hard, okay? So I'm currently doing it because I always try to change things up with my training.
Yeah.
Well, as in like have little goals. I'm trying to run a fast mile at the moment. And I don't like running. It's terrible. I think all runners look really like depressed in life. They look much older than they really are. I don't need that. I don't need that sort of nonsense in my life. I got down to 6 minutes 9 seconds for a mile this week. Super chuffed myself. Almost passed out, close to vomiting. This Hoke.
I'm gonna give you daps on that. I can't let that go. Shout out to you, Ben.
Thank you. This guy, 3 minutes 45 for the same, basically. Yeah. But
crazy.
Yeah.
it gets crazier, okay? Jacob Kiplimo, 21 kilometers, 56 minutes 42 seconds. And look how fresh he looks. Again, look at his face. He's like, I'm here, I'm having fun. This is great. If you can run a 10K in 56 minutes, you're doing pretty well. It's good.
I mean, where do we go from here? That's the thing. I mean, you look at the marathon times, the half marathon times. I mean, the guys effectively, they're not far off sprinting the whole damn route.
That's just it, though.
I mean,
he's
absolutely
he's
crazy.
at a full canter with this kind of
It's
stuff.
like 2 minute 40 odd a kilometer or something like that. I mean,
crazy pace. Yeah.
that's he wouldn't be far off the 1600 meter time either. You know, it's crazy.
I ran that for like 3 kilometers, and I would say, like, for my age, I'm an above average athletic person for my age, okay? Because I work on that, and I've got a good frame. Like, I'm naturally light. If I do that for 3 kilometers, the thoughts in my head are so dark. They are so punishing. And this guy's just done it for 21 kilometers. It's amazing. Brent, out of all of those, who are we going to give it the moment of the week to?
I'll give it to the Sharks, eh?
Give it to the Sharks.
Because I'll never forget that moment because it cost me money. So I'll give it to them.
Okay. All right. So join us after the break. We got a big segment coming up with Brent about just general stuff around betting. As he said in his intro, sorry, get all choked up by how amazing these running feats are. As he said in the intro, there's certain things you can do to be slightly better at this, and that's why we got him on the show today. But before we get into that, on Sunday, I was at Lanseria for a really, really special brand announcement. The Springboks and Monster have come together. We'll catch you back after this video. I'm at Lanseria getting slightly wet on a Sunday. Not because this is what I do for fun, it's because inside there's about to be a very special sporting announcement with the Springboks and Monster.
Good afternoon, everyone. South African Rugby is thrilled to announce the Monster entity has become a global part of South African Rugby and all our national teams, marking therefore first foray into rugby sponsorship.
No. You can just call me So Cake Nche or Cakewalks.
All right, who's your favorite Springbok?
Billy LaRue.
No hesitation, that's your guy.
Yeah. Either him or Mr. Andre Pollard, Iceman.
Now, is that because they're good oaks or just because you like playing around them because they're so exceptional?
I think it's because they're good oaks, but they're even better. You know, they're amazing on the field and they're insane at their job. So it's just, that's why my favorite players, yeah.
Jack, if you had to pick a sport to be world champion at, as in like the best, MMA, rugby, or cricket?
I would say rugby. I mean, I grew up with rugby, so it's in my blood. So definitely, would love to be a world champion at rugby. Even though MMA sounds fun, I just think rugby's just in my bones.
But what if you could make like Heinrich Klaassen 4 times as much money in cricket?
Then probably cricket.
Yeah, but then you got to tell people you play cricket though. See, that's not quite the same.
No, man, I love a good game of cricket. But yeah, I was just rugby's been my sport since young. I played rugby long after school. Still, it's an amazing sport. That's why I'm so super excited about this because I didn't know at all. They surprised me with it. They were just like, "You're gonna love this," and they flew me up to come and join. And yeah, I think Monster and Bokke Rugby is just like the way to do it. Look.
Oh wow!
I even have a Springbok on my ring.
Since Strickers has become world champion, are contact sessions in the Bok camp a little bit more vigorous?
Nah. To be fair, we watched them in Australia and we saw that was another level. So I think it definitely just inspired the boys to get a bit more down and dirty than physical.
So sport's like super popular in this country now. It's like it's the everything, right? How do you think, from a commercial and popularity and relevant standpoint, you should make more rap songs about sports stars?
I think so. I mean, I've got 2 songs that I've written for the Bokke. So, I mean, there's
But I mean, like, if you really went niche and you went for like a guy maybe on the fringes of a team or like a cricketer.
Just write him a song. I'm there. Lead me up. I'll be there. Whoever wants it, I'm a, as I said now 5 times, I'm a lover of rugby. So if anyone needs a little theme song, they should also start doing like each one their own theme song, like they do in the UFC.
Absolutely.
You just walk out, each one, Veli LaRue, and it's like dance.
See, that's the thing, right? It's a huge year for Vili because of the Vili 100. There's your song.
Yeah, exactly. We need a Vili 100 song, eh? I think it's a plan. I think you've given me an idea there.
Okay, my primary strength in life is writing, so hit me up. I'll write stuff. You can obviously finesse it.
We can combo. I like it.
All right, that's a pretty cool addition for the Springboks. It is a monster year for them, of course, because they are playing the All Blacks in New Zealand twice. Then we also play Ireland and France away for the autumn internationals at the end of the year. For lots of energy around the box and all the other things, sports, of course. Catch Sandile and I every Thursday on the Real Network from 4 p.m. with new episodes of The On The Bounce Show. Totally reckon we can make Monster in Chair happen.
Welcome back. I know, Monster, the puns write themselves in that one here. It's pretty easy wordplay. It's a really cool sponsor.
Yeah, they're also awesome sponsor. I think it's going to be super huge for them as a brand. Partnering up with, another world champion brand, which is the Springboks. So that's going to be super awesome. And coming off the partnership they have with Drickers.
But that's the whole thing, right? It's like we spoke about the Springbok equity deal a while back and like where it's going as an international team. Yeah. Like we need to be internationally well known. 100%. And I know someone in the messages, I put a post about this last week and they were saying, Switch was a really great brand for the Boks and they make great ads and that kind of stuff. I totally get it, but where the Boks are going, they need international brands 100%. Because it just makes them look stronger and like the content you can make around them, it matches. It gives that sort of feel.
100%. And we've been talking about the global link, of the Springboks and the marketability of rugby. And I think them partnering up with such an internationally recognized brand is going to do nothing but great things for their athletes, number one, and I think just for the global network of, the Springbok brand.
As a content creator, for me as well, how do you make your players look more superhuman? That brand's like everything about that, right? 100%. It's larger than life, it's crazy, it's extreme, and it's engaging. But enough about that. We need to get into Champions Trophy. Okay, right. So that's how we're going to kick off here, Brent. We're going to get your thoughts. Last week we had a poll, basically getting your thoughts about where you think the Proteas are going to be come Champions Trophy time. Your options were win, finalists, semis, or shit the bed. And majority of you thought the last one there, the most negative, the most pessimistic out of all of that. Brent, thoughts?
Yeah, look, I suppose South African cricket fans have had to deal with a lot of disappointment over the years. So I don't think any of us want to go into the tournament expecting to win because we all know how that normally ends up. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I was looking at the betting. Obviously, you've got India firm favourites here at sort of the 16-10 mark.
Oh, just, hang on a second. Let's actually just bring up, Flex, we've got a slide there. If you want to better bets.co.za, it's one of my favourite interfaces around this for betting. Yep. So we've gone onto their site here to get this. India, as you were saying, there we go. India are favourites.
Because they're playing in Dubai, but anyway, let's leave
that out. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah, poor old Pakistan don't get to host. The final's actually not known at this stage. Exactly. Where it's going to be. Australia, they're 4-1. That's just over 4-1 there. If you, I like to talk in fractions. I'm very old school. That's a good price on an Australian side as well. And then, South Africa, do you back them at what sort of round about what would that be, 13 to 20 mark there, South Africa? For me, the team Pakistan is perhaps a little bit of value. They look pretty good. Okay, they played against South African side, missing players, but they look pretty good in the warm-ups. Yeah. And ultimately, they are playing a lot of matches at home. Mm-hmm. They haven't had a lot of cricket in Pakistan for ages, so the atmosphere will be absolutely electric. And for me, Pakistan, if you had to tell me, I'm not going to back India at that price, to be honest. I'm always someone who looks for something a little bit more of a long shot. If you had to show the rest of them to me, I'd say Pakistan or the team that can surprise.
Australia, sorry, just bring the slide back up there, guys. Australia are kind of second favourites. They've just had a tour to Sri Lanka, which I'm not entirely sure we can draw too much from. They got a bit hammered in the ODI games there. Just tuned up there. I think New Zealand are always, for me, a dark horse in tournaments. I don't know how they do it. They've got a player pool of literally like 14 oaks, but they're somehow pretty good. They look good in that warm-up series.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, can you just keep the screen on there, please? Obviously, we're going to discredit Afghanistan and Bangladesh because they're never going to be in the mix here. And you can say what you want about Afghanistan being, tournament teams that can have an upset. So there is a top 6 there. England, though, I think that's one that people aren't talking about right now. Should we be looking more at them?
Well, look, England, the challenge with this tournament is it's short and sweet. There's 15 games in total.
Yeah, I mean, essentially,
so if you lose,
it's like a World Cup in half the time.
Yeah, that's it. So you talk about Afghanistan. You're right. Afghanistan are not going to win the tournament. But if you lose to Afghanistan, like if we lose to Afghanistan, you can kiss your hopes of making the semi-finals goodbye. So obviously, the way the betting looks in our particular group, I think we're with England as well. And you see very even. So that, the way it's sort of looking is that, we probably have to beat England to make it through to the semis, and they potentially have to beat us. And yeah, so it's a tight one. So I would say you could make a case for any of those sides below. The reality is, correctly, India are going to be the team to beat. They've just got cover in every single position.
Yeah,
They've got so much, but there's definitely a chance of one of those teams below. I would write off the 2, and I would say it's between the top 6 in the betting, which is not rocket science, but that's where your winner will come from.
Okay,
I told you I'm healing my relationship with the Proteas. So I didn't actually vote for shitting the bed. I actually voted for a semi-final berth. So that's me and once again, I'm going to give credit to Dominic Hendricks for making sure my relationship with the Proteas goes on for a healing process. But do I think we're going to win it? No, but I think it's going to be similar to the Six Nations, where England are going to have a major upset and beat somebody who was odds-on favorite, like we have with Six.
So you're kind of saying like maybe England in the finals. You got to think India. There's so many funny dynamics here because India, Pakistan, they're in the same group. So if you don't know how it kind of works, there's 8 teams, there's 2 groups of 4. India, Pakistan in the same group, but the game is seen as a India home game sort of thing because they're playing in Dubai, which means the host Pakistan have to go to Dubai to play this game. Yeah. Now, I really hope that fires Pakistan up to the point where they have a superhuman day and can just do India over.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all probably hope that, certainly if you take the betting element out of it, because it seems like India just dictate what happens, in world cricket, and it gets a little bit annoying.
We saw it in the last T20 World Cup, right? They had less travel issues. They played later games because of the watching times.
There was even something when it got to the semis or something like that.
They played at later
strictly
times.
Speaking, they should have played at a different ground or something, and there was something there, which is that sort of influence. Frankly, India don't need that influence. They're such a good side anyway. But yeah, I suppose there's more to it in this particular case. But yeah, I'll be having a few rand on Pakistan, so I'll be pulling for them.
Okay.
Of course, then the dilemma comes: Pakistan, South Africa final. Yeah, money talks, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you've said that you'd bet against something else. So
I was on England in 2019 against the Box. I watched in a box shirt with 14 South Africans, and I had to pretend to be happy at the end. I was happy, but not as happy as I would have been if England had won.
That's wild.
So just before we wrap it up with the Champions Trophy, because, I mean, that starts obviously this week with the New Zealand-Pakistan being the first game Wednesday this week. Now, with South Africa being the 4th favourites, what do you think is holding them back? Because you looked at the trajectory of this team. We've actually done pretty well. We got to finals, we got to semis, but there's not a lot of, I say, incredible optimism going into this. Why would you say that? Is it because we haven't got the bowlers? Are you saying the conditions might not be in our favour? What would be some of the factors that come into giving South Africa that prize currently?
For me, one of the problems South Africa have got on the sort of wickets we're experience there, where they're going to be big scores. We don't seem to have that ability in the 50-over game to go hard all the way through. We always have that spell where we go in along at 6 and over or 5 and over. And I think in this game, there's going to be in this tournament, there's going to be need to chase down some big scores and to set some big scores. And if you look at our recent warm-ups, we set some 350s. They weren't good enough. We've got to go hard. You've actually got to be looking at the sort of 400 mark. So that's one of the things for me. I also don't think we've got that sort of match winner spinner in our attack. We've got guys who can take wickets and that sort of stuff, but we don't have that ability maybe to turn the game there. But yeah, and there's also obviously the track record. Like you said, we've had a few semi-finals now, but we still haven't really shown that we've got that ability to get over the line yet and actually get the win. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The betting's going to move quickly. What I can say, if you're a punter looking to get involved, maybe you don't want to get involved in the outright markets. So other markets that are quite interesting, you could bet on, for example, who's going to be the top South African batsman.
Right.
Who's going to be, so the two I sort of earmarked there was Marco Jansen. I thought he had a brilliant bet by SA20. He's just over 2-1. Rabada is the favourite. But Rabada also, he's a great bowler, but often teams are happy just to see him out, Yep. So maybe they'll go for Jansen and Jansen gets a wicket. And batting-wise, I thought Markram at about 4-1 You know, he annoys me like crazy, that guy getting into the 20s and 30s and going out. And make no mistake, he is capable of delivering, and I'm hoping that he could be the guy who delivers for us on the big stage.
There's something interesting that Markham said in an interview not so long ago. He said, like, I'm never going to have the personal records, so it's all about the team for me. Because he was meant to be amazing. He is. There's so many great attributes about that guy, but he hasn't really kicked on to be like a superstar. He hasn't become like a Joe Root or something like that.
I mean, cricket's a sport. I mean, at the end of the day, how do you contribute to the team? You do it with your individual. I mean, yes, you can be, you can team spirit and all the rest, but ultimately it comes down to delivering. And he's right. I think at the start of his career, you would have thought he might have been up there with the greats. The fact is, he's still done some really good stuff. And if you compare him to those around him, he still needs to make the side. But he's never really, kicked on to that level. And there was one of the World Cups where he did, if I recall, he did pretty well. So, I mean, maybe this is the tournament where he really stamps his authority.
It was under 19 one where he was the captain.
Oh, no.
That was his best.
I didn't know about that one, but it was one of the ones in the last, say, 3 years where he batted well. But, I know. I mean, for me, if a Markram does come to the party, it changes the whole dynamic for us as well, gives us a strong chance.
Yeah, so if you don't find a lot of value on the whole teams thing, as Brent said, you can get batsmen, top teams, top bowlers. There's a variety of different markers within the tournament. I mean, now when I went on to betterbets.co.za this week, I found all that kind of stuff. And I personally like to bet on the bowlers because it's quite, I used to bowl. So you find the little thing that really gets you about the game. The bowlers are going to be in for a tough time on these pitches. So whoever comes out on top there, I think it's going to be very exciting. Brent, just to go back a couple of steps here. Now, you just rattle off a couple of insights very casually there.
Quickly and cash.
So what's your process when let's just say this weekend we've got Six Nations coming up. What's your process around gathering information and getting to a position where you can make an informed choice or call on a bet?
So it all depends on the tournament. So you've nailed on where I like to bet. I like rugby. 95% of my bets are rugby. I follow all sports, but rugby for me is that's my bread and butter. I like to look at that. So if you had to take the Six Nations, there's not a lot you can look at because once again, the Six Nations is one of those tournaments. All the information is out there. Everybody knows England are going to play their strongest side. You don't know, like team selection doesn't play that big a role, that type of thing. So you'd probably just look at past performance and you go with a bit of your gut what you fancy. But to use probably a good example for me to tell you for this weekend is Super Rugby started again last week. So the Super Rugby betting comes out on a Monday morning.
Congratulations, you're the first person to talk Super Rugby on the show.
I always say South Africans love Super Rugby, but only South African bettors. Because if you don't support a team in it and that, but that's the beauty about betting. Yeah. I can watch the Falcons against Griquas. It can be the match of the year for me because I've got a big bet on it or I've got an interest in it. And Super Rugby would be a good example because what happened was I watched last week's games. This week, the Chiefs are at home to the Crusaders. And I handicapped that game myself. So that, in terms of process, what I do with rugby on a Sunday night, I do my own handicap. So where would I put the thing? Not where I think the game will finish, where do I think the market will be? Yeah. So I made Chiefs 8-point favourites for this game. Monday morning, the betting comes out. Chiefs are 3-point favourites. That's my signal. Put it on the blog, whatever. Guys, back this. We can decide later in the week what to do with it, but I believe this market will move. That afternoon, it was already out to 7.5, 8 points. So that's my process. I price up myself. Then if the bookies' odds are different, and this works, you can't really do this on soccer, to be honest, on EPL and that. But if the bookies' odds are different, then I've got to think, am I right or are they right? Sometimes I have to acknowledge I was wrong, then I don't get involved. In this particular case, I saw no way that the Chiefs weren't going to be at least one-score favourites against the Crusaders based on what I saw last week and got involved. And now I've got money down. Now I can decide, do I let it ride? I can hedge a little bit, that type of thing. So that's my process that I follow. And then the other side of it is, what I love about rugby betting is like the points markets. You can get, we talked about the Loftus state of the Loftus pitch. I mean, I was high on points there. If bookies come out with a crazy high line this weekend of close to 60 points in total for the game, knowing what we're going to experience in terms of pitch condition, I'd probably be looking unders. So that's where you can, if you do a bit of research, I mean, it's ridiculous. We watch Bloom, I've been known to watch like a webcam in an Italian piazza somewhere just to see if it's raining close to the ground so that I can get a bet. I mean, that's how deep it goes, you know. And that's part of, for me, it's part of the fun, you know. I love that whole challenge of trying to beat the system, beat the bookmaker.
Yeah, I mean, that was my next question is like, what's your favorite weather app? Because I know like you bet in golf as well. Open Championship's a great one for this.
Yes.
You get the field wrong. You could be playing in the rain. Other guys are playing in the sunshine and no wind. So that's obviously a huge factor. Have you ever been at an extent, I know this is going to sound a little bit murky, but have you ever been to the extent...
Yes. Oh, sorry. No.
Have you ever been to the extent where you have people that are close enough to teams, as in like, is this guy playing with a slight injury? How's he trained this week? Goal kicking wise, is this guy going to be fit for the week to kick, or is it going to be a secondary kicker? Have you ever gone to that kind of extent?
I haven't, because it is murky. Having said that, I know that people, sometimes you just know a guy who's a reporter or whatever, and he'll say, oh, yeah, the Sharks are carrying a lot of injuries, or the Bulls are carrying injuries. And that type of stuff does factor in. I mean, I've always thought one of the things where there's often big market moves, if we take like the Champions Cup rugby, for example, bookies set the odds. Sometimes they don't even set the odds early because they know there's going to be all sorts of things. But there's a lot of speculation early in the week. Are the Sharks sending their strongest team and that sort of stuff? And I often thought, if someone just went to the damn airport and noted who the players were, we'd know that Etzebeth's not going and that sort of stuff, and you could bet accordingly. But I mean, there's a lot of that sort of stuff happens in betting. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of it's pretty genuine stuff. And for that reason, bookmakers have to manage their risk as well. So you're not going to be able to get a 50 grand bet down early in the week, for argument's sake. They're limited. They want to see where the market goes. But there is a lot of that. But yeah, personally, it's not something I've ever looked for.
Well,
but information comes.
I wasn't suggesting you have a plant in the team. There's a guy that's cleaning windows and just taking notes for you. I wasn't suggesting that. Because again, it goes, if journalists do a really good job in kind of reporting on stuff and the general scheme and things that are happening around that, you're obviously going to read the articles. You're going to immerse yourself with all the information you can have.
And then the thing is, well, look, once the articles come out, everyone, you know what I mean? The bookmakers are also looking for that edge. So you've sometimes got to make certain assumptions. Like as a rugby punter, I never used to do it that much, but it's become more important now. It's what has the team got next week? We spoke a little bit beforehand about like Manchester City playing Liverpool, but they've also got Real Madrid in the midweek. So, like, how does that interfere? What are they focusing on? And that's what happens a lot, especially in the club rugby now. Like, okay, are the Bulls focusing on URC? Like, they were prepared to virtually sacrifice, the Champions Cup. And if you know that, you can make an assumption that they're going to rest the team and bet accordingly. Every now and again, you're wrong, but quite often you're right, and then you've obviously got the value there. So there's plenty of that. But yeah, certainly, I'm sure there are people out there who've got some sort of more inside information without it hopefully being too murky. But the earlier you can get the information, the better.
But you now see why, like, it's so strict. So you go to cricket stadiums around the world, and it's like, you go to a tournament, there'll be a big sign saying no cell phones past this point. Because once you get in the locker room...
Yeah, there's that side of it. There's also the trading, which you can't really do as a South African, but like you've obviously heard of Betfair, where you actually trade. So, I mean, I know a guy who knows a guy who used to literally go to county cricket, sit with his laptop. He had like a super fast connection. And when the ball went in the air, and he could trade on the basis that the catch would be taken because he had those split seconds to trade on. And they've stamped a lot of that type of stuff out. Tennis was another one where you'd have guys sitting because of streaming delays and stuff like that. It was all so technical. But the whole thing is to keep the players away from it. And you know what? It could be very easy for a young player. I mean, for argument's sake, bump into someone in a pub or something and they're casually talking to you about the weekend's team. You don't even realize that you're giving them information that they can use. It's tough. It's like anything. I say any vices and betting can be one. I would never overly encourage someone else because everyone handles things differently, and it's a bit like drinking or whatever. It's fine in certain levels, but if you go too far, it's a problem, and that's the same with betting.
I think you alluded to it. I wanted to ask you the impact of digital platforms and social media platforms on, one for you, on your end, because I see a whole bunch of these athletes who get such big feedback or negative feedback because they missed an odd, because I'm a big basketball fan, because Kevin Durant was meant to get 30 points and he missed 2 free throws, and then they go at the players. What have digital platforms like social media done in terms of influencing, the sports betting market and influence you in terms of your odds?
I mean, certainly from an information point of view, it's meant like real-time news. It's a bit like in the old days you bought the Sunday Times to read the results. Yeah. You don't do that anymore. You've got all the results handy. Yeah. So you get that sort of real-time feel to stuff. Yes, a lot of abuse. I mean, I think, referees is the most obvious example. 100%. Those poor guys take a lot of abuse. So that type of thing. But it's the information that's there, that's handy, that's changed it. And what that whole it's much more difficult these days to get information that will assist you in getting an edge in the market, because that information, in the old days, it was like very limited. But now, I mean, once someone's mentioned it or whatever, it goes wild, So you're still always looking for that fair edge, if you want to call it that. But I think social media has made that a lot tougher. On the other hand, it gives you the opportunity if you do your homework. I mean, there are guys that, you follow all the teams on Instagram and there's a photograph and you see it's pouring with rain in the background 4 hours before the game. The points line hasn't moved. Now, I'll tell you guys one quick story about my betting. I used to do spread betting. You can't do it in South Africa anymore. I literally opened an offshore account years ago to do it. And there was one time, it was the Force against the Stormers in Perth or whatever. And I woke up, the kickoff time on all of the bookmakers said 7 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up and it was pouring with rain there. And I looked and the bookies hadn't moved their spread. So I started going low and low and low. Turned out it was actually the game from the previous day that they showed the crowd. And the bookies had the time wrong. And I thought I had this great piece of information to make a fortune. And I ended up, my biggest loss ever. We had to go to dinner with the family afterwards. I rather would have put a gun to my head, But I had to smile when the mother-in-law said something. Yes, that's lovely. But geez, yeah. So that can also be the downside of it if you get the information wrong.
So, I mean, when you said you're a smaller punter than you used to be, is that because you kind of lost the edge with information being so widespread now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's become a bit tougher. It's also why I've become more focused on rugby. I love soccer betting and all the rest of it, but you realise what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And rugby betting, I'm not going to say there's better rugby punters out there, make no mistake, more consistent guys than me. But in the long run, I can make my money and be competitive, because who wants to do something where you're losing money every week as well? That I've never understood. I used to play casinos. I gave up when my daughter was 6 months old because honestly, I used to win a bit at sport and I would just go to the casinos and give it back. So I eventually had to say, this is not for me. If I carry on like this, I'm never gonna make money from betting. I have to stop casinos, and I did that. So you all got your different lines.
So when it comes to getting things wrong, and I think this is a general question that can touch on many people. And I'm going to bring Sandile up because he's here. Okay.
And he gets things wrong often.
They're going to bring up this narrative of me being like Drake.
You know what? I don't want to go negative. It's just that in my mind, because we've had some big calls on the show, right? Yeah. Where he's backed Man United because he's a Man United fan. So in my mind, I always think one of the biggest problems that people have when it comes to gambling or betting is that they're too emotional towards their teams. So let me know if you agree with that. But what are the other things that kind of are easy things that people should stop doing?
Well, let's start with the emotional side. You're 100% correct. I mean, the bookies like an emotional punter, because you bet. But on the other hand, there's nothing wrong with emotional punting. I mean, you're watching Manchester United play.
Well, you have a bit of fun as well.
It's not all about. Yes, it's like the drinks taste a bit sweeter afterwards if you make money. But it's not all. I mean, ultimately, it's about your enjoyment. If I had to say to you, the other night, I said, listen, I know that SuperSport, are they going to win this game? And you put money on SuperSport. You would have hated the game. Because on the one hand, yes, I'm making money. On the other hand, I'm not. Yeah. So if you're a true supporter, and that's what that Springbok thing was a bit of an exception for. I placed a bet early in the tournament. I didn't expect the buggers to meet in the final.
I was going to say, yeah.
It was one of those things, if I could have taken it back and just had my money on the box, obviously I would have done that. But it's that type of thing, that emotional punting. The other thing which you've got to guard against, and this sounds obvious, but it's one of the most difficult things that I still make the mistake sometimes, it's chasing. So you start the weekend, you like 3 bets. You place those 3 bets, maybe the first 2, whatever reason, lose. Suddenly you find yourself on a Sunday afternoon watching the Dragons against Ulster, placing your biggest bet of the weekend. Why are you doing it? Because you're losing on the weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where the discipline comes in. And the good punters, and I consider myself a decent punter, but I know guys who, as I say, who have been in the game also many years, and they just want to, that's where you shut up shop. There's another week. I always say, there's another week of rugby next week. We don't have to make all the money this week. Yeah. And that's the discipline. And that's where I've become a lot better as I've got older. But maybe the other side is that I can't afford to lose the money anymore. Whereas when I was younger, it didn't really matter.
It's such an in-the-moment kind of thing. We've all been there. We've all chased.
Yeah, it's natural. And if you can control that chasing, I mean, you're still going to have your losing weekends, but it's to minimize your bad weekends. And I mean, I have sometimes I can point to some stories where I've chased and I got lucky and flipping won, It's like, whew. But more often than not, for whatever reason, when you chase, you're not thinking clearly. It's weird. It's hard to explain to someone who maybe doesn't bet, but when things are going well on the betting front, you see everything so clearly. You see through the noise. Yeah. You see, there's hundreds of markets on every game, but you focus in and you get the market that offers the value. Yeah. When you've placed 10 losing bets in a row, you can't even see the screen properly. You don't know what
is going on. Yeah,
that's how it is. But isn't that life at the end of the day? When things are, if you're having a bad week, flip. I mean, I shouldn't say this in case my wife's watching, but like yesterday, I took my daughter off the medical aid because she's got a job. What did they do? They took my son off the medical aid instead, like stuff like that. Those things happen. And then all of a sudden, every decision you make, you're second guessing yourself. And it's exactly the same with sports betting. When things go wrong, the best thing to do, and I've done it a few times over my sports betting, where I've literally taken 6 weeks and I've stopped.
Yeah.
Because you lose the value of, if you just chase hard, and if you stop for 6 weeks, you forget about the money you lost before that. You start from scratch. But if you still keep betting, yes, you had a nice win on that game, but I'm still chasing, my losses from the previous week. And it's that discipline, I would say, to anyone getting involved. First of all, start off for fun. If you find you're enjoying it and you want to try and make some money, don't chase. Have the discipline. Stick to a strategy.
Yeah, I think you've alluded to a question I wanted to ask in terms of your biggest advice for future people getting into it. Is the chasing part the biggest lesson that you've learned from when you started to where you are right now, or would you focus rather on deep research into your platform and stuff like that? Research
is important, particularly like I said, there's not that much you can do on an English Premier League game. You've got to probably go on. Just watching the games and having some sort of ability to read teams. You often find with the Premier League, like a team will go out fast, like a Nottingham Forest or whatever. Yeah. And if you can read when they're going to hit that peak, like Leicester didn't hit that peak a few years ago and they actually ended up winning. But if you can read when they're going to start their slide, you can profit on that. It often takes the markets a little bit of time to pick that up. That's what I bookmaker lag type of thing. So you might have a week or two where you can profit on that. Like the Curry Cup, for example, when that comes out, depends what time of year it's been played. You might get value in going over points or under points, but within 2 weeks, the market's settled and you'll struggle to find the value.
On a variety of sports, because when you think sports and betting, horse racing is a huge one, always has been. It's like you get horse pundits, you get those guys that love that. It's going to sound like a strange question, but I'll give it a go anyway. Is there sort of easier sports to bet on, as in you can get the information? It's like when you go to the casino, right? I'd rather play blackjack than play a slot machine because I can work out the mechanics of blackjack more. Is there something like that in sports betting, that there's sort of easier ones to bet on?
I wouldn't say there's an easier sport. There are sports where there's more information and less information available. So often, it'll be an obscure tournament where the bookmakers price up, where no one really knows, like one of these smaller cups or whatever. That if you do a bit of research, you can see, okay, Kaiser Chiefs are resting all their players. But for the big games, everybody's kind of got the info. What I would say, though, is, you got to look at then, am I getting a fair deal from the bookmaker? Am I getting the right price? So, for example, if we had to take Markram, if you can get 4-1 of Markram to be top bet, don't take 3-1. That type of thing. So there's that type of thing. But honestly, it's difficult. I would say that, for me to try and bet on a sport that I've got no interest in, hockey, for argument's sake now, I'm not passionate about the sport, so I'm not going to spend the time needed to do the research. Rugby, I do it. Golf, there's too many. It's too sort of diluted during the year now. But I love nothing more than the week before Augusta, sitting down and studying form and trying to find that. Also, maybe you're back in the favourite order, but also trying to find that guy who's going to run into the top 10 who the bookies have kind of ignored, that type of thing. But it's very difficult. I wouldn't say, I think if you're a passionate soccer fan, I think something like the PSL you could make money on, as much as I wouldn't say it after last night when there's 3 upsets. But that's also part of the thing about the PSL. You must know that, like if Liverpool play a team at home from the bottom 3 in the table, Liverpool are going to be very short price at Anfield. You're going to get a bit of a bigger price on the South African team. But know that every now and again that, that shock result, the Galaxy beating Sundowns result is going to happen. So it's very difficult. My recommendation to anyone wanting to bet sport, do it on a sport that you enjoy watching and are passionate about.
I want to ask about, there's a growing celebrity culture for betting. And I wanted to ask for you, somebody who's been in this industry for a very long time, do you think celebrities coming into the betting world is creating unrealistic expectations for the regular guys who come in? Do you find it a good thing or a bad thing? We all understand that it's a big marketing exercise.
It's a great question, because isn't Drake a stakeholder in Stake?
As in,
he's the guy who poses stickers every time.
Yes, and he is basically on the show. They call me the Drake of our sports show. Every time I bet and make an odd, I completely shank it. So I just wanted to ask you what you think about the celebrity culture in this industry.
Look, I always say with betting, and I'm not coming across as, I'm someone who bets. I play casinos. So I've got if you want to bet I've got absolutely no moral objection to that. In fact, as I say, I do it myself. But what happens with betting is it becomes very. There is a fine line between what should be acceptable, I guess, and what shouldn't. I have no issue with these celebrity things, but the reality is, your celebrity that you're looking who's got one of the major bookmakers sponsoring him, he probably doesn't know an odd if it hit him in the face. You know what he doesn't? He's just there because he's a big name. He's got 2 million followers or whatever, and it's all about generating new interest and new sign-ups and stuff. And that's business at the end of the day. I mean, you only have to look at every English, and I know the legislation there, they've got to the point where it's starting to crack down, but every English Premier League's got a designated bookmaker. Yeah. I mean, one of our South African bookmakers, Hollywood, has actually they sponsor Brentford over there. Oh, yes. You know, so every single advertising, I mean, you've got to watch SuperSport now. It's all about betting advertising. So that's where the market is, that's where the money is. So it's natural that the market will move in that progression. But I don't think when I see like a rugby player sponsored by a particular bookmaker, it doesn't make me want to go to that bookmaker. I look a bit deeper. But to the average fan who's never had a bet before, I mean, it's a great way for the bookmaker to market.
Yeah, because, you know, we're seeing a whole lot of players. You know, I see Itumeleng Kune has just gone with Top Bets now. There's a big endorsement with that. So that was just why I'd asked the question. But, you know, we're talking about the growth of sports betting as an industry. The digital platforms and those various industries as well. People like Betway coming into the game, Hollywood Bets, you know. What is that major transition? What have you seen as an impact on that, on the platforms and on the different, you know, formats of the game? Like, I look at Betway and getting into the Premiership right now, PSL. What have you seen as the major transition with regards to that?
Yeah, look, I mean, it is the whole digital era back for. I mean, to give you an example, I've been writing previews for blogging on it since 2005. Okay, so that's 20 years. That's a long time. Right, but in those days there was 3 online bookmakers in South Africa. I don't even know how many online bookmakers there are now. You can, you know, there's plenty. So it's such a congested market. But the other thing that has changed, and I think you can probably look to the whole COVID lockdown type of thing for that, is in the past it was all about horse racing and sports betting. Now the bookmakers all offer. In fact, you'll never find a bookmaker now that doesn't offer a casino type offer. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, that's where the big, if I could say, the money lies, because also, you'll know from casinos over the years, if you play often enough, unless you hit a jackpot here or there, whatever, the house is going to win. And that's where the market is now. So if you watch the adverts that come up between the rugby games, it's very seldom, you know, have your rugby bet with us. It's like slots and all of that sort of stuff. That's where the market's moved to. And it moved there because people were now at home, and that's when there was grey areas about legalities and that, which have now, I think, been sorted. But that's kind of where it moved to, was people were bored at home and started playing it. And ultimately, you know, if I was a bookmaker, that's the market, you know, looking at it from a pure profitability point of view, that's the market you really want, because that's a market that ultimately sitting in their bed maybe at 3 a.m. doing that. They're not watching a webcam in Italy trying to see what the weather's going to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's all those betting do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a weekend of sport coming up, so we're going to put Brent through his paces a little bit after the break with a whole weekend preview. But massive takeouts here when it comes to betting. Don't be emotional and don't chase.
So don't be like me.
Sounds a lot like sounds like dating advice as well. Catch us back after the break.
Introducing Heineken House. Open the door and step inside. Heineken House dropping January 2025. Not for persons under the age of 18.
All right, this weekend we have rugby. We have one game in the URC, but let's not worry so much about that. I mean, it's Bulls versus Lions. That's at 2 o'clock. What I do want to get into is just touching on the logs right now, because we are getting to the stage now where you've got to make a bit of a run for the playoffs. As you know, in the URC, the top 8 go through, but you want to finish top 4. So we're looking at the log currently. Leinster, still 11 from 11, still pretty much damn perfect. And then we've got Glasgow, Bulls and Sharks making up your top 4. Brent, you know, cock on the block here. Are the Bulls still going to be the top SA team here?
I don't know if I'd put put anything to say that they would be top because, I mean, if you look at it, the Sharks are only a point behind them. But what is important there is both teams have got a game in hand still over the teams. I don't even want to say the teams above them. Obviously, that's relevant. But Leinster and Glasgow have separated themselves a bit from the crowd. But certainly the teams below them that are chasing them for those positions. So I'm not convinced that the Bulls will be our top team. I still think, actually, that the Sharks could be the team that carries the South African flag this time around.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a bit disappointing because I wanted the Bulls to be the top team because I just thought that they were better at home. I just thought they were better travelers. But, I'm all for it. Sharks, Bulls, whatever. If we look at the bottom half of the log here, you'll see that the Stormers, I mean, these guys, it's...
The jokes write themselves. Before we continue, yes, the Stormers. Feels like you support the Man United of rugby there, don't you, brother?
It is a little bit, hey? These little bottom half of logs. And so the way I see the Stormers is they can still make that top 8. And then they can maybe surprise someone. Is that a realistic kind of expectation?
It is realistic they could make it, but they're going to have to turn the way they're playing around. 100%. I mean, there's a reason I wore my Leinster shirt and not my Western Province shirt on the show. What I would point out there is, and it's sort of leaning into this week's game as well. I mean, if you look at the Stormers on 24 points, they've played 11 matches. The Lions are 1 point behind them, have played 2 games fewer. So if any of those, one of the 2 bottom teams is likely to make a run, I actually prefer the Lions' chances of making a run towards the playoffs because I can't remember what number 8 was on, but if you say Lions win one of their next 2 games, they'll go on to 28 or 29 points. They're in the top 8. So that's the sort of thing I would look at. The problem with that is if you say, how do I turn that into a betting advantage? Yes, you can get a big price on the Lions to win, but even if they make the top 8, are we realistically thinking they're going to win the tournament? So it's quite difficult to do that. I mean, Leinster all season long are trading deep in the red. Yeah. Having said that, for the last 2 years, Leinster haven't won they've also, because they've been involved on 2 fronts, they've started changing their side. So I also don't like tying money up for too long. But the Lions Bulls game this weekend is going to be a big one.
Well, what I like about the Lions, just to kind of echo your thoughts there, is that I like them at home. At home, they get the job done a lot of the time. I don't know if it's because Ellis Park, because altitude, they're just happy there. So their home games are generally points games. They just beat the Stormers there. That was a huge thing for them. Away, the Trans-Yuksky derby, I mean, do you reckon that after last week they can maybe snuff the Bulls out here?
I think they can, actually. I'm not necessarily saying they will, but I can tell you the betting is about a 7.5 point favourites that the Bulls are favourite, understandably. It's where I priced the game as well, so I'm not seeing obvious value. But what I'm saying is if you look into the mindsets of the camps after last week, you've got the Bulls who were 10 point favourites to beat the Sharks at home. They failed dismally. And you've got the Lions who were back to beat the Stormers. They were 5 point favourites, but they delivered nicely,
Oh, that first half performance was phenomenal.
So they delivered really well. So if you ask me, like, which team is going into this game with a better mindset, I'm saying it could be the Lions. The fact is, man for man, the Bulls, they should do better than they're doing at the moment, and we'll see what happens. But personally, I think the Lions can upset them. And as I say, the other thing to look out for when we get points lines on the game is where do the bookies put it? Because that pitch, I don't know, I don't understand. It's going to be a mud bath, I think, at Loftus, because normally the drainage is brilliant, but now you've got mud to start with. It must just get worse.
I just want to know what that concert was. Was it Kurt Darren?
You know what? I actually read what it was, and I've never heard of it, so I can't even tell you.
All right, so Six Nations. Okay, we had a break last week from the Six Nations. Now we are back and we're firing. Fixture-wise, we got Wales versus Ireland, so this is Ireland's chance to really up the points differential. Wales, no disrespect to you, but we all know
nobody cares.
Wooden spoon. And then we got England versus Scotland. England at home in this one for the Melrose Cup. Is that what it's called?
Calcutta Cup, I think it is.
Sorry,
Calcutta
that's the
Cup,
one,
I think,
yeah.
yeah. There's so many cups.
There's so many cups.
A blogger that I follow, a guy called Jackal Rugby, he did a thing at the start. He says, with one World Cup between them, this is where the Northern Hemisphere go for their trophies. And he listed virtually every game's got a trophy.
Yeah, that's quite
Cup,
weird.
I have no idea.
So, yeah, because that was the original Rayburn Shield, of course, as we know. So
Rayburn Shield. I remember that.
So that'll be, those are your 2 games Saturday for Six Nations. And then Sunday, we've got Italy hosting France. So again, the 2 strongest teams in the tournament get to play the 2 weakest teams. If we just pull up the log there, please, Vex. Okay, so Ireland, it's theirs to lose, basically, when you think about it here.
So they play France in the next round at home in Dublin.
Yes.
They're 1.5 point favourites. So bookies are expecting them to win, but France could win that game. That's going to be obviously absolutely key because, if Ireland beat France, they win. There's no question, no questions asked. No, England can't do anything to catch them. I mean, unless we get a shock result somewhere down the line, but it's highly unlikely. So that game is going to be crucial, and it's obviously crucial in the meantime that those top 3 teams win their games this weekend if they want to stay in contention.
But your feeling is Ireland's going to just take it from here?
Not necessarily. No, I think France can beat Ireland in Ireland, but it's going to be one incredible match. I mean, that is the game of the Six Nations. I mean, you look at things like last week or 2 weeks ago, England's last-ditch victory there over the French. And then you think about their bonus point that they got against Ireland at the end there. You know, those are the things, if you actually look at that log, if Ireland are beaten by France, it's probably going to be a log jam on 21 points for all 3 of those. And then it will come down to, first of all, bonus points and things like points difference and that. And that's where Ireland have done well because they got the bonus point win against England. You know, they got full marks there. But even a team like England, if France can beat Ireland, you know, England not without a chance. But it's going to be difficult because of the fact that they haven't picked up. They've only they got the 1 bonus point away from home there.
Yeah, it is. But England again, they've played Ireland, they've played France, they've got 6 points. That's decent.
Exactly. I mean, they don't have to play each other, so they got the 2 toughest games out the way. Yeah. Look, Ireland were very fortunate in terms of the draw. Ireland playing their 2 toughest games at home. So, I mean, obviously, England, they 8.5-point favourites against Scotland this week. They've got to win that game. You've got Ireland, Wales. You've got a massive handicap there. But even the Welsh parents probably wouldn't back their side on the cap. It's like 24.5. But, I mean, the thing is, we've all seen it in English football. You guys will know. Take out a manager that had lost the dressing room, and all of a sudden, maybe a bit of an improvement. But the problem with Welsh rugby is, as they say, like, do they actually have the cattle? I mean, irrespective of who the manager is, I mean, you could put Rassie Erasmus in there. Can he really, with that bunch of players, turn it around? Yeah. I don't know. But there's a bit of, admittedly, they're Welsh guys that I've been in contact with. They think they can beat the handicap. And then, the other one is Italy, France, I think it is. I think it's about an 18-point cap there. So the game of the weekend for me, in terms of one that might go down to the wire or excitement, is going to be England-Scotland at Twickenham.
Yeah, you touched on something quite simple there, but this is what is quite fun when you are betting and you're playing like this. Forget about the result, you play handicaps. So we all know that, like, Italy's not going to beat France. We know that. I mean, there's going to be, unless it starts snowing and food poisoning, but you play the handicap on that. And suddenly it opens up more interest in a match.
Yeah, that's it exactly. I mean, the reality is if you hear 2 people who've never been exposed to betting, they only talk about the winner and the loser of the game. And I mean, who's going to bet on France at like put 100 Rand down to make 2 Rand profit or whatever? What's the point, you know? But then you have the handicap is 18.5 points. Now you can start looking, okay, France will probably win this comfortably, but I think, Italy can beat the handicap. And I mean, there's so many more options. So there's a lot to get involved in. So I'll give you the England-Scotland game. I'm looking at that total points line. It looks like conditions. There's a bit of rain in the morning at Twickenham, but Twickenham's got brilliant drainage. Yeah. And 46.5. Now, Scotland, England often play some really low-scoring encounters. But I just look at this Scottish team and the way they play, and I look at this English team, the way they set up. I think we could get points here. So I'm looking for sort of 47 points or more in that game. I will watch the weather closely, though, because, the forecast, you get a forecast today, it looks different.
Tomorrow,
so I'll probably only make that call because the market's a very mature market. It's not going to move a great deal. I'll make that call on the morning of the game.
All right. Well, let's get into football. I say this because I don't want to come back at it, but obviously the Betway Premiership right now. If we have a look at the log, we've been saying it the whole time, it's ultimately going to be a 2-horse race here. If we look at the top 8, there's been a bit of fluctuations here and there, but ultimately, we're just kind of got to keep saying it. Pirates are 9 points back with 2 games in hand of Sundowns. Those teams this weekend are in action. Yeah. Pirates are taking on Cape Town City, who are, I think, currently 9th. That'll be Saturday at 3:30. And then Sundowns are hosting TS Galaxy, who actually beat them recently. That'll be 5:45. Sandile, are you excited at all by any of that?
I think what's super important about the Pirates game is that the 2 games in hand over Sundowns, they've got to win those games for them to keep it competitive. And Sundowns have, as you said, they're playing against TX Galaxy. They could probably drop or draw against those guys. So Pirates have got to accelerate, and I understand they've got a crowded fixture list with AFCON and catching up games, but it's going to be interesting how Pirates approach this. Thank God we're not talking about Chiefs.
Let's move on because we all love the English Premier League, of course, and that's also a very exciting place. So obviously, time of recording, Aston Villa are hosting Liverpool, and I really hope that as an Arsenal fan, Aston Villa do something amazing because it's a tough game midweek, huh? Aston Villa away. Shake of head here.
Come on, man! Don't live in hope. You know what's happening. You know what's happening in that game.
to look at the log of the Premier League right now, after 25 games, so going into this next round of fixtures, 7 points is huge. Now, no matter which way you skin this, 7 points. This Liverpool team is gigantic. Brent, I mean, like, I know football's not your big thing, but Nottingham Forest must have been one of the biggest sort of surprises this year, and the fact that they're still thereabouts must have made for some interesting bets and outcomes.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, no one would have even had Nottingham Forest to finish in the top 10, probably at the start of the season. So that's a big upset. I mean, this is one of those weekends where you look at it. I mean, you've got Manchester City up against Liverpool. City have obviously got that big game which against Real Madrid, and Liverpool have got the midweek fixture. So you also look at it like, and we don't know, but can Liverpool afford perhaps to rest a few players, and so we don't know at what level they'll be going. And I can tell you that the bookmakers have Liverpool slight favourites. They probably would have been even money favourites were it not for that 4-0 win over Newcastle. But all of a sudden, the sleeping giant has awoken, and it looks like it could be a tricky encounter for Liverpool.
So we've said that a couple of times, and again, Sandile, you know a lot more than I do. Is Man City a sleeping giant occasionally, or is this now potentially a time they can have a bit of a run?
I think we've disrespected Pep Guardiola's team. I think they're still a very, very good team. Losing 3-2 to a Real Madrid doesn't really make you terrible, but giving a Newcastle 4-0, and that's a team that's been taking heads. This game, I actually have Man City pipping it because Pep Guardiola at home and in a big game, you know what he's going to give you. He's going to give you everything, and he still wants to be recognized as a title contender. That's a world-class team, and with a new signing getting a hat-trick in the first half, I think it just builds nothing but confidence into that team as well.
Yeah, so that's obviously the massive game for the weekend. So that'll be Sunday at 6:30 SA time. Also on Sunday, we've got Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. That's going to be hugely competitive at 4. Your Saturday matches, Everton versus Man United, 2:30, moving right along. Ipswich versus Spurs at 5. Arsenal will be taking on West Ham at 5. So Arsenal are in a good little patch right now. They're not playing the strongest of teams.
But must win.
But have to win. They did last week.
Yeah, must
2-0.
win.
Easy.
They have to win everything till the end.
And then on Saturday as well, Chelsea still pushing for that top 4 spot. They are away to Aston Villa, and that'll be at 7:30. Okay, so Champions Trophy for the weekend, obviously cricket. We got it earlier in the show. It is basically a World Cup, done in half the time with just 8 teams. Pakistan, they are hosting. That's the first match against New Zealand. But Friday, Afghanistan versus Sri Lanka. That'll be the first match that we're getting involved in. Saturday, Australia versus England. Those are the other teams in our pool. And then Pakistan versus India, the big one on Sunday, which unfortunately is being played in Dubai. This is it's a fiery cricket match. It's going to be a bit neutralized playing at this essential neutral venue. It would have been so great to have this match in Karachi or Lahore or something, but that's not going to be the case. Yeah. We got a poll for this week. Obviously, every single week, if you go into our X account that is at TRN on the bounce, you give us your thoughts on a couple of things. This week's poll is sports betting. Do you bet on the sports betting sites? Your options there are regularly, sometimes, and never. Of course, we know our guest today, where he fits into this poll.
Yep.
Brent, thanks so much for joining us today. Just let us know where people can find more of you, because you are a fantastic resource. I really do love your content because it's just as you are in the show right now. Tell us about the newsletter, the show on the week, how you stream, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so all started with a partner of mine, Chris Sturdy. We've got a website, Good4TheGame, so we preview sports, and we've got a nice forum, particularly our rugby forum, very, very busy there. And then I do a YouTube show live on a Thursday night, betting show. I've had guys drink a case of beer on the show, so you never know what you're going to get. But I've got some real expert analysis. So, I've got guys who get up in Auckland, like last week's guest. He can't come on tonight, but he's back next week. He's in Auckland. This week I've got a guy in Spain who follows rugby, believe it or not, really closely. And I've got a guy known as the Admiral. I always thought he was an experienced punter. The guy's a student in Ireland, but he knows his rugby brilliantly as well. So I'll be talking to them like live Thursday night at 9 on YouTube. They can just search for Good4TheGame. And then I send out a weekly newsletter, which is not a tipping newsletter as such. I share some bets, but I've always wanted to avoid. I've never wanted the pressure of being like people following me blindly and But it's also educational for guys who are getting into betting. I share my thoughts and views. If I lost the previous week, I flip and have a bit of a curse about it on the way on that. So that, the best thing they could do there is on the Good4TheGame website, they can find the link to that.
All right. Well, it's a bit of a community. Like I said, I do enjoy your streams because I don't bet as much as I used to, Mostly because I just don't have the time. I'm trying so hard to find fucking nuggets for this show.
Can I stop you there for 1 second? You've hit the nail on the head in terms of if you want to be a successful punter, you need to have time.
Yeah.
Bit of time
Because
in the
otherwise, you don't have time. So I'll give you an example. I'm sure you won't mind me mentioning him. We call him the understaker because he loves going unders in games. But Henrik, he started off when he came to my side years ago. He was a small punter. Anyway, he grew up and he was punting large, but he didn't have a family yet. Yeah. And now that he's got a family, he was saying to me, he just doesn't have the time to do the research. And it's similar to me. I had a full-time job at one point. I went on my own. I still work. I've still got to put food on the table. But I've got more time again, which I didn't have for probably a decade. My kids are now at varsity or out of varsity even. So I've got that time. And you actually, if you say the one thing that you need, if you want to be successful in betting, you need to have time, or you need to know someone who's got time that you can just follow blindly, because time is critical, and it's what, let's face it, it's what all of us don't have most of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, we're going huge on the World Sporting Trophies. We got our 101 man, Dimitri Liano Takianak is coming in.
Got it. One
I
take.
reckon I
I'm
got it
proud
right
of you.
there. That'll be next week. Catch you then.